Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I hope you are doing well. It does look like we got a bit of a breakout today in the markets. Markets across the board were pretty green. If we're looking at the Dow Jones, it was up 1.4%. The S&P was up 1.76%. The Nasdaq was up more than 2%. The Russell was up close to 2.5%. A great day for that index. And looking at the Tesla weekly chart, it does appear that we had essentially 8 weeks, a record 8 weeks of downward movement for the stock. And then we had 2 weeks of essentially stabilization here where a bottom of around 220 was tested. And that floor has held up. And now we are up in a big way today, more than 10% on Tesla, so up close to 12%. So perhaps we've established a bottom on that name, and there is we can resume our upward trajectory here. So good news on that front. BitDeer is up 16%. BitDeer happens fast, as I mentioned today on our X account. If you blink, you'll miss it. Typically, stocks use the stairs going up and the elevator going down. Well, this is a stock that uses the elevator in both directions. Iris Energy was up 7.55%. CLSK was up 18%. I did get some requests for an analysis of CLSK. Perhaps we'll revisit it again. But it is up 18%, but it's only at $8 per share. If you recall, when we sold, it was closer to 20 per share. So still way off the highs. And at one point, it was close to twice as high in terms of a share price as Iris Energy is. Now Iris Energy and CLSK are basically $1 apart. Gold continues to maintain its level above 3,000. Bitcoin is at 88,000. And Solana is at 141, whereas Dogecoin is at 18 cents. I think Bitcoin, in order for us to kind of put this dip behind us, we'll need to see it break the 91, 92,000 mark. That was previously support, and now I look at it as resistance. If we break above the $92,000 mark, I think that we can put this particular dip behind us. And that brings us to the topic of today, which is breakout. Do we actually have a breakout now? Let's look at some of what's going on in the market, basically, and form our opinion. And we'll look at basically the fundamentals, primarily looking at Bitcoin and some other things to see where the next leg may be. Now, this may be good, it may be bad, depending on your perspective, but right now we're at a record level of aggregate asset allocation to equities in the United States. So if you look at financial asset allocation across households, mutual funds, pension funds, and foreign investors, equities is close to 51%. And if you look at this chart, it's very close to where it was before the dot-com bubble. I do think this time around is different because this time around we are experiencing what I think is perhaps the greatest revolution in the history of economics, and that is artificial intelligence. I mean, previously, all economic thought, all economic theory, systems of economics were all built on the presumption that labor was limited. And with the advent of humanoid robots, it may be the case that within a few years here, labor becomes more and more unlimited. And so that's going to have a lot of impacts on everything. It may usher in, it may bring about the end of times, but it may usher in an age of abundance. And if you're in the right names, I think you can really benefit from the transition that is happening, the revolution that is happening with regards to artificial intelligence and robotics. Now, this is an interesting story, which has been making the rounds. So this man, Josh Mandel, he actually worked for Solomon Brothers. He, back in November, said that on March 14th, he's calling a price for Bitcoin of exactly 84,000 on Pi Day, that is, March 14th. And so he nailed it. March 14th, it was exactly 84,000 at one point. And so what's exciting about this is that this person who, a few months prior nailed the exact price of Bitcoin on a day in the future, predicts that Bitcoin will get to 440,000 in 2025. So if you thought that my prediction of 200,000 in 2025 was aggressive, he thinks 444,000. And in fact, when you look at some of the things that are happening worldwide and perhaps the loss of confidence in some systems, alliances, previous world order that has held since World War II, when you look at the doubt that has befallen these things that we took for granted for the last, close to 100 years, then the argument for using something like Bitcoin as a safe haven, and we're already seeing this pan out in traditional safe haven asset, which is gold. The argument for using something like Bitcoin becomes extremely strong. So who knows? All I know is that this is a pretty nice dose of hopium for those who are looking for one. By the way, I would be remiss not to mention we're in the final days here of Ramadan. I hope you're taking advantage. And with the final days of Ramadan, we're in the final days of our 35% off offering for PIF membership. I really think that we're going to have a strong 2025. A lot of money is to be made. And I think PIF membership will pay for itself many times over. So check it out. Link to become a member is in the description. Now, one of the things that a PIF membership can help you do is avoid the losers. Well, at least that's what, alhamdulillah, we have been able to do in many instances in the past, including Ethereum, which Ethereum is now down 95% from the all-time high in Q4 of 2021 in terms of quarterly transaction fee revenue generated. So I think this is a leading indicator for what is going to happen to this chain moving forward. Eventually, if this trend continues, this chain is going to just die. There is no justification for a $100 billion chain that produces revenue that is in the single digit, sometimes in the hundreds of thousands in a day. So you have a very big discrepancy here in valuation between the amount of cash that this blockchain is actually producing and what it's being valued at. I understand that there's a scarcity element to tokens that drives price as well. I understand that, but still, at the bottom line is you have to be producing something useful. You have to have some utility in order to maintain your value over time. And when the fees are so low that they're being generated from a particular chain, that kind of indicates that the utility that is being had by this blockchain is quite limited. So buyer beware is all I'll say. Now, something very bullish about crypto and leads me to believe that perhaps this breakout is, more than just a single day move. The stablecoin market cap, and remember, if you're moving from fiat to investing in crypto, the medium term step is you buy stablecoins. So you move your US dollars to something like Tether or some other stablecoin, and then you buy the crypto that you want. Well, the stablecoin market cap is now reached an all-time high, surpassing 220 billion, and this could be a lot of investors positioning themselves for what they think is going to be a bull run in crypto, and otherwise they wouldn't put their money in stablecoins, because stablecoins do hold a risk to them. I mean, it's possible that the stablecoin is not stable, so it's possible that it depegs from whatever it's pegged to. So typically pegged to a dollar. So if the stablecoin depegs, and this has happened before, investors are holding that risk when they're putting their money in stablecoins. So they would only be doing that if they had use for stablecoins, which is to buy crypto. So this is a very bullish sign, I believe, and could fuel a pretty big pump in crypto that is coming up. There's also a lot of signs, pick the headline that you want, but there's a lot of signs that Bitcoin, crypto in general, is getting more mainstream adoption and acceptance. If you look at a country like Pakistan, they're looking into using their excess electricity for Bitcoin mining. The House of Doge has launched, I think this is a really clever idea. So, and granted, the starting amount is nothing to write home about, 10 million Dogecoin, so just over 1 million in US dollars. But the idea behind this reserve is that it will provide the liquidity needed for corporations, businesses, individuals to transact in Dogecoin. So I think this is a really good idea. It shows that the coin is still alive and kicking, and it's still working on itself. And I think that it is indicative of the eventual utility that I see, well, for Dogecoin, which is a means of transaction, a means of payment. And it's indicative of this in that it's not a reserve like, let's say, the Bitcoin strategic reserve is basically, you buy it, you hold it, you're not supposed to sell it. No, this is actually a reserve that is meant to provide liquidity for transactions. So there's actually real utility here. And so I thought that was really cool. There's obviously a lot of catalysts for Dogecoin coming up, including the ETFs that were applied for that will likely get approval, I believe, should get approval later this year. I think at latest October of this year, Dogecoin ETFs should hit the market, and perhaps that coincides with a very strong bull market, which would be very good for Dogecoin. So again, just a reminder, only 7 days left, 35% off PIF membership. Become a member if you aren't already. And with that, we're going to go to questions. Salam Kenza, would you please advise if Tempest AI has a good growth potential? So check out subhanAllah, the timing was pretty good. Friday, I had a live on Tempest AI. I had a valuation for it, so check that out. Rashad says, what is more significant, tariff or rate cut? So I think, Rashad, that if the tariffs are somehow put into law, then they become really a problem. But as they are right now, I think that at any point in time they could be reversed. I think the rate cut is a lot more a permanent and longer term than the tariff talks. At least as of now, they have been. So I would say more significant is what happens with rates. I think that inshallah, we'll get some good news regarding tariffs. The Trump administration has indicated that there was flexibility with tariffs and they were going to give a lot of exemptions to a lot of countries. So that may really, dull the impact that they have. Do you really have to bring up Ethereum? I mean, yeah, I hope everyone is able to exit at a price higher than what they bought, but at the same time, don't wait around too long to be exit liquidity for people at the end. Alaikum salam, Zuhair. Nice to see you. Nice to see you, Dr. Khalid. Nice to see you, Squared Circle. Opinion on green Satoshi token. Not really familiar, but sounds like something I wouldn't be interested in. Make Bitdeer big deer again. Yes, indeed. So maybe we get to, I really think that this is a company that, and we have it in our 10x portfolio. I think it can 10x. So especially with what they're doing, with the structure of their ASIC mining chips, something that really hasn't been rethought for a long time, and they're rethinking it. They have a new design for it, and they claim that they'll be able to get to 5 joules per terahash by the end of the year, which is more efficient than any other Bitcoin miner by a lot. By the way, if you're like at 15 joules per terahash right now, you're doing good. Think that most miners are striving for 10 joules per terahash, but 5 joules per terahash by the end of the year, that would put it on basically the bleeding edge of this technology. And if we're talking about Bitcoin being, a replacement for gold, and you have the most efficient Bitcoin miner, then I think that imputes a value on your company that is at least in the tens of billions. You should be able to get there, I think. So yeah, I maintain my thesis for Bitdeer. So now a good time to go into Doge potentially. Well, I can only say this: I don't give out. This is not financial advice. I'll tell you what I'm doing, and I can tell you that Doge is below our buy below price. So at these prices, I think it's a pretty good entry point. Especially when I look at all of the things that are going well for Bitcoin, and you observe the correlation between Bitcoin and Dogecoin. It fluctuates, but I would say between 70 and 90% is the correlation. But on a percentage basis, when things are going well for Bitcoin, Dogecoin should go up higher. On a percentage basis, when things are going south, then Dogecoin goes down more. So I think that I would not bet the farm on Dogecoin. Definitely not. Don't go overboard. That's silly. But I think a small allocation makes sense, and or a reasonable allocation makes sense. So hopefully that is useful. And make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this live. And until next time, make sure to take care of yourself. Assalamu alaikum, and peace be upon you all.